Like, do you have that afternoon void or that afternoon gap? I call this. So what happens? What I my theory, and I don't think I'm the only one with this, but you work a lot in the morning. You have your lunch, but if you're like one of these hyper productive people, you might eat lunch and work at the same time, or watch a video like an instructional video or something. So you might try to learn or keep on learning something, right? And then around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, it becomes like, okay, now I have to step away from the computer. You actually want to detach yourself from your work. So at that point, you have like it's too early for dinner. You've already eaten, but you've been sitting all day, working mostly. Your eyes are kind of going blurry. Your brain and mind is going a little fuzzy as well. And you're like, okay, well, I'll go for a walk. And like then, but you can't just come back and start work again because there's sort of that transition from the first part of the day into your evening, at which point you have to start thinking about what you're going to make for dinner. So I've called that the afternoon gap, or there's a lull, the afternoon lull, and that has been the source of the beginning of a lot of my drinking throughout, as far as I can remember. But what about you? Have you ever experienced this, like that afternoon lull? Not the need to drink, but the desire to
No,
drink, but that afternoon lull.
no, no. Uh, well, for me, the computer also is, the computer certainly is where I do my work, but also it's where I get information, it's where I do reading. Also, do you know the game Magic the Gathering? We were high
Yes.
school, middle school and high school students.
Yes.
Right. And it was actually all the way back in 1996, 97. There was a computer DOS-based game, but it also runs on Windows 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to play that.
Online.
No, 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 not online. No, no, no. It's from 1997.
Oh, okay.
This is, yeah, this is a really old game. The online game, among other things, real magic, you buy cards and
Yeah.
you can only play the cards that you have. And it's the same thing if you do the digital online thing,
Right.
right? Because or everybody would just make decks with the best cards in it.
Yeah.
And so you get to buy like an NFT. You get to buy this electronic copy of a card, but it's not
Oh,
real.
yeah. Right.
And and also the rules have changed so much. For example, Dungeons and Dragons. They, I play second edition or AD&D.
Okay.
That went on from like late 80s, early 90s until about 99, 2000, and then there was third edition, 3.5, 4, now they're on fifth edition. The rules have become a lot easier, a lot simpler. Is there more clarity? To some extent, yes, certainly. But also they've made it so that they're different races, just like in Lord of the Rings. And you can be a combination of races. You could be half elf, so you're half human, half elf, or this or that. But they have made it so broad that you can say, oh, I'm an eighth this, I'm a quarter that, and so I get these special abilities and those special abilities, but none of the downside to playing that race.
Right.
So
Well,
from
so
my
what would
point
the
of view,
downsides be then? Like, if someone is like one of these uber characters or super characters, what would the downside be?
well, the point is so that you have to deal with some restriction, some counterbalance to the fact that you can have this but not that. For example, uh, dwarves dwarves have greater strength and maybe constitution, but they have problems with their dexterity.
Okay.
Elves have better dexterity, but take a blow to constitution.
Uh,
Humans
sorry. What? They something to the
const
Constitution?
so their constitution, their actual
Oh,
body functions are a
okay.
little bit hurt.
Right.
And then there are humans who have no special changes, but they have the ability to learn the greatest set of or develop the greatest set of abilities.
Right.
And so there's no counterbalance to that. Well,
What
anyway,
draws you to
Magic,
this game? Okay, yeah.
Magic,
Yes.
Magic Ed was the same thing. In
Right.
Magic, the original rules up to when I stopped buying cards actually 96,
Right.
Ice Age. And now Magic is 20, gosh, 20, 25 years old, I guess. Wait a minute. No, it's 92. Oh, wow, it's 30 years old. 30 years
That's an
old.
old man game.
Almost.
That's a parent. That's your daddy's game, basically. If you're a kid, I mean, you're point that my dad plays that, right? Kind of like Civilization, I would say. Civilization was my big game that I played in high school, junior high, and high school. But I have resisted buying the latest editions only because, well, there's two reasons. One, I know it's highly addictive. Number two, it requires more system resources, and it just became very difficult to keep up with it because that game requires so much computer power. And I was reading reviews of it as well, and they're like, yeah, it requires so much computer power that it almost makes it unenjoyable at times because you're waiting for your computer, or you have to play it on such a low level. So unless you
Right.
have a dedicated gaming system, it's not running the way the old game could be run. I guess it was still dedicated back then, wasn't it?
Well,
Computers didn't multitask as well as they do today.
are you familiar with GOG,
Oh, this
Grand
sounds
Old
familiar.
Games?
Familiar, but no, don't know it.
All right, it's a website where you can buy older games on the cheap.
Right.
And I have Civilization 3 on this laptop that I'm talking to you with. My copy of Civilization 4. Civilization 4 came out in 2005 or 6. It's actually in Qinhuangdao with where my
Right.
son lives.
I
My
think
younger brother,
Civ
yeah.
4 was probably the last one I played. I played the Warlords expansion pack.
And you can download things like that. Did you play StarCraft? The original
No,
StarCraft is free.
never did.
Warcraft 2,
Never.
Warcraft 3, no.
No. Sim, it was Civilization. I played SimCity Build It on my cell phone for a few years, maybe a year or so. I don't play very many video games at all. I was tempted when I was back in Canada, and I almost think I probably should have done this, was to buy the NES Classic and the SNES Classic. They were like $100 a piece, right?
Ness,
And yeah,
Ness, that is
the
why you should stick to your side of the St. Lawrence River. Ness, okay, in normal
what?
English, we say NES or SNES.
No, not at all.
Yes.
NES and SNES. That's how I've always said it. That's how everybody I know says it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. North of the border.
Even the Americans I know, it's not an NES, it's NES. Wow. Okay.
Nonsense.
I did. All right. So anyway, Nintendo Entertainment System and the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. The only other I was looking for used versions on Taobao and Jingdong, but they don't sell game consoles here. As far the Nintendo Switch is allowed, but like PS5 and stuff like that, I guess they're not allowed here or something. I'm not sure. I don't know.
That sounds right from what my son and my ex-wife tell me. The workaround for that is you could have ordered from Japan or Korea, maybe China. I'll ask my younger brother. You download an emulator onto your laptop, but then you can get a controller that's for that gaming
Well,
system
yeah,
with
yeah,
USB.
but no, I wanted the actual box because it's I don't know how much stuff you do on your computer, but it's getting to the point that I'm trying to do everything on this one system. Like I'm looking at my setup right now and going, this might be a little bit much. And maybe it's time to either upgrade or downgrade, one of the two. But it's like you run an emulator, you're sucking up system resources, regardless of like maybe you focus on a game like that. I would think that I would have it something like on the side. I would start playing it for 15 minutes, press pause, then go back to doing something else,
Yeah, you
right?
realize these are 8-bit and 16-bit games. They didn't
But
take up all that much memory.
yeah, it's
And you don't need
no.
processing. You don't need a lot of processing speed to play
Well,
these games.
do you use an emulator?
Because I don't have a controller to play it. My brother does a lot. No problem.
Hmm. But you don't use one.
Again, because I don't have a controller for it.
But if you had a controller, there goes podcasting.
I would be
Sorry,
playing
I'm
Mario
busy.
Kart. A lot
Mario
of
Kart. That
people
was another.
believe Mario Kart 64 was the best one. No, I disagree.
Which one
The,
was that
this,
then? Yeah,
the Super Nintendo, the original version,
yeah, that was. I remember that one. That was a classic. That was a very good game.
but I guess my reaction dealing with SNES compared to N64, I didn't have N64. I didn't play it very much. And my
Wait a minute.
issue,
N64, not N64? If it's an NES, then why don't you say N64?
no, we say it more quickly, SNES.
Yes. Even still, but you just said N64. Isn't it an
Yes.
N64?
No, because 64 refers to the number of bits.
Yeah, right. Okay.
It does.
So okay, so
Uh,
your story is
so anyway, I didn't have one, and I wasn't overly impressed by the N64, save Super Smash Brothers.
okay.
And what was it? Golden Eye, right?
That was
Golden,
N64. I thought that
yeah,
was
that was
also Super Nintendo.
no. The graphics, the graphics sort of was reminiscent of Star Fox, to be certain,
Hmm.
but it was definitely higher quality.
Hmm. I remember people playing GoldenEye. That was the one that you could have four players on it, right?
Yes, and have that split screen. It was the first one of that generation of consoles to really go into that kind of thing.
Whatever happened to the N64? When did it sort of stop being relevant?
The thing is, when I was in, I guess that was 98, more or less. And
Sure, okay.
the N64 was still in college, being played by college students when I went to China in '04. And then after that, I mean, by then I think PlayStation 2 was going to be coming out, maybe the
Hmm.
first Xbox. I had no idea.
So
And
you
then,
didn't play PS2, 3, 4, whatever it is.
no. I traveling around the world and not really interested.
Yeah, I noticed that travel killed a lot of my childhood sort of distractions, games and sports and stuff like that. When you have to figure out how to communicate your way across a border, and then you have to, you know, gear up to go to the local government office and wonder if they're going to arrest you or profile you or whatever, or
Right.
just simply finding your hostel, which was always sort of an issue. I don't know about how easy it was for you to find hostels, but I always got lost. I always just went to the direction of where the hostels would be and then looked there. I never tried to find one hostel.
When did you start traveling abroad?
2009?
My first travel abroad was '04, and the internet, I couldn't rely on cell phones or anything like that, certainly not for information. I was prepared. I had maps, or I understood and wrote notes about where I had to go left or right, about how much distance it was. You know, what people did in the
Yeah, but
70s or 80s or
even still,
90s.
with directions and maps, the hostels had such small signs that it's like unless you knew exactly where to look, you would just walk right by it because that they were not in the business of
Right,
advertising themselves. It
very
was more
well.
like you had
Yeah,
to know exactly where to look. That was the issue. It wasn't that I couldn't navigate. It was that I couldn't find the sign that said that the hostel was on the
you're
third
right. Yeah,
floor. It's
yeah.
like up here to point with an arrow, turn around the corner down this dark alley on the third floor. You're going, where to really
Right.
look. Then, as I became a little bit more acclimatized to how hostels and they're working out, and Southeast Asia made it a lot easier and cheaper. It became a lot easier to sort of find different places and to go in there, scope them out. But to be fair, a lot of them, I think back then, they still had like game consoles. I'm not sure if they do now, but I think you can rent them. I'm not sure. Yeah, but travel killed my gaming. I wasn't big into it anyway. Towards the end of it, again, Civ 4 was sort of the last one. I remember playing that one in South Korea, like taking it with me. But
Right.
since then, SimCity build it on the cell phone, and that's it.
Yeah, the again, it's just that era. There were other games from the 90s and early 2000s that I play or would like to play sometimes, but then that's it.
How, so you don't game very much now, other than playing. Do you play Magic now?
Sure, I play, well, like I said,
Oh,
I played on my computer. I actually have several thousand cards and they're actually, geez, too much. They are with me. They are here in Georgia. All of my things, all of
physical
my
cards
personal
you took with them to Georgia?
all of my I had all of my personal belongings either here with me or whatever I had to leave in China when the coronavirus problem started.
Right,
I didn't want to have I didn't want my family having to deal with it.
right.
It's not
How
very
much?
practical.
How much? No.
They're heavy, right? They're heavy.
And well, at least I mean, you could barter with them if you had to get across a border crossing, right?
I'm better off trying to barter the 100 grams of gold than the magic cards.
Right. Well, if you're carrying 100 grams of gold, I'd be careful, sir. I'd be careful.